It has been quite the journey to get here. It's crazy to think I've been building this thing almost through all 4 seasons, spanning a total of 7 months. Now, 2 of those months were in the winter where basically nothing was happening, but still, 7 months. And I know you want to see it, and trust me, I will show you all of its camp house greatness. I'm also going to break down the final cost of the project. You're going to have to stick around to the end to see that. But first, let me show you what it took to get this project wrapped up. And that starts with the roof. Yes, the roof. That thing that I should have been done with months ago. The last couple things I needed to finish was securing these back panels, first along the bottom with closures and screws, and then evenly spaced screws up and down each panel, which were a nightmare to get to on this steep pitch. And my janky homemade 2x4 ladder came in pretty clutch here, even though it was a little clunky to move around, and certainly sketchy at times. But of course, I did take the time to measure the exact screw locations so everything lined up, even though no other human would ever see this. But as the one human who did see it, it did look pretty good. Finally, I need to add the ridge caps to the roof, starting with the closure strips on each side. I then follow that up with some silicone on top, before finally adding the ridge caps and securing down with screws. Now my roof is a little different in that I actually needed 2 different pitch ridge caps due to the middle transom section, which I added last. Same process, closures, silicone, screws. All right, with construction now complete, I think now's a good time to clean up the area. I've got months worth of construction debris just kind of piling up everywhere. And before we move on to finishes, I think it'd just be nice to have a nice clean area to work from. So I tried to make one big trash pile to make cleanup easier at the end. And looking back, it really didn't take that long to pick it all up. I'm actually kind of glad I went that route rather than stopping and picking it up as I went. It would have kept the area cleaner, but it wouldn't really have saved me much time. And with the last of the big stuff gone, this area was looking much better and actually felt bigger too. Looks like we're ready for the next step. And that brings us to painting. One of the most ultimately rewarding yet painstakingly slow parts of any build. And it's not necessarily the painting per se, it's all the other stuff that goes with it and before it. Starting with caulking. I still needed to caulk all of the siding and trim I added in the last video, and this is just one of those steps that is totally worth it. It not only seals up everything nicely, it just makes the finished product look so much better too. It's easy to hide all of those little mistakes that we may or may not have made before. I also went ahead and added clear silicone around the inside of each window to seal those up as well. And the next preparation step for paint was cleaning. As you can see, when it rains, the water runoff from the roof hits the ground and splashes mud up on the siding, which isn't good. The water running off the front face of the roof was already starting to erode this area right in front of the porch. And there was also plenty of dirt spots left over from construction, so to make sure my paint had a nice surface to stick to, I decided to power wash the shed first, using this little battery-powered guy. It worked pretty well, and removed all of the dirt in a matter of about 15 minutes. So once this has some time to dry, we're ready for the next step. And the first and most time-consuming part of any painting project is the prep. So I went through and meticulously masked off everything I don't want painted, which is obviously the metal roof and the cedar accents. And the reason for that is because I'm gonna spray it using the same sprayer that I actually painted my new shop with. It's a Graco Pro X17 and it is awesome. You spend a lot more time on the prep work, but you end up with a really good quality paint finish, and the painting process itself goes really fast. So let's get this thing loaded up and put our first coat on the shed. The main color of the shed is peppercorn, and I, hilariously, originally bought 1 gallon thinking that was enough. So after a quick trip back to the paint store, I set the sprayer up with another 5 gallons to finish spraying. And what's cool about a paint sprayer like this is that the end result isn't a complete reflection on your skill level. What I mean is that as long as you know the very basics of painting, you'll usually get a really good finish. And man, is it so much faster than prep. So after about 40 minutes of really mostly moving the ladder and getting the line untangled, I had almost the entire shed covered. And as annoying as it is to put on the masking, it is oh so satisfying to take it off. So let's get all that off the bottom. I'll go back and paint the trim around the windows and touch up any areas that I'd previously painted. And then finally we'll paint the top dormer section by hand because I'm not gonna worry about spraying that. Now for the trim, I went with a black color as a nice contrast to the gray. Hopefully you can see the dark color scheme I'm going for and how it's going to work with the cedar accents. I couldn't really mask the windows reliably, so the trim was left white, and I ended up doing a couple of coats of the trim color to get good coverage. And finally, the dormer section was kind of a pain, not because it was on the roof, but because these shake shingles had a ton of texture and pockets in them, making them really hard to brush. And this is where a sprayer really shines. Anytime you've got a lot of texture or complex surfaces. But after some tedious dabbing, I eventually got everything painted to match. It's looking good so far, right? The dark color scheme mixed with the cedar I think is a really cool look. Now, of course, we pick cedar for outdoor projects because it's robust and resilient to rot and bugs. But I want to take it a step further and protect it just a little bit more. Cedar has a tendency to fade and even turn kind of a grayish color over time. So to help counteract that, I'm applying some clear outdoor finish. The added benefit of doing this is that it actually darkens up the cedar a little bit, making it really pop. So that was a welcome addition. You can really see here on the porch beam how much better it looks after we put the coating on. I went ahead and applied this to all the cedar, including the soffits under the front porch and each gable end of the shed. I know I likely am probably going to have to reapply this every couple of years, but that just comes with the territory. Okay, I know you want to see it, stick with me. There's a couple more things we got to do before the big reveal. And the part I've been looking forward to the least would be the ground cover around the fire pit and the shed itself. Because what I don't want is a mud pit or for it to get overgrown with weeds like it looked like before. So the first step of tackling that would be some grading around the shed. This grading, especially along the backside, is really just to help with the water runoff and prevent erosion around the foundation. All of this will eventually be covered up and protected. I also leveled out the eroded area here by the front porch. Now to prevent weeds from retaking over this area, like it looked before, I'm going to lay down some weed barrier around the fire pit. This combined with the ground cover we're putting on top should keep this area nice and clear. So with all the weed barrier in place and staked down, we're ready for the ground cover. And for that, I'm going to be using river rock. And though I could have saved a little bit of money buying it in bulk, the really small premium to have it in bags makes transporting it so much easier. So I chose to go this route. Of course, delivery is also a bit easier and more neat versus having a truck dump it in your driveway. Now, instead of shoveling, I can just throw these bags into my cart and haul it down to the shed spot. Now, I don't know about you, but shoveling rocks is right up there with ditch digging as the worst possible manual labor. And in my mind, that's the premium I'm paying for. Now, originally, I was going to put down some big chunky mulch or bark like you see at a playground. It would look nice and be comfortable to walk on, but then I thought of the fall, when this entire area is covered in leaves, it'd be next to impossible to keep it from getting blown around. River rocks, on the other hand, won't have that problem. And my son thought he would offer some words of encouragement while he watched, which turned into an overly aggressive motivational speech about the importance of hard work. I decided it might be a good idea to add some pea gravel to this known drainage spot before covering with river rock, just to give the water an easier route to get out of here. And of course, 6,000 pounds of rocks and gravel was nowhere near enough, actually. So for good measure, I got 5,000 more pounds.
What are you doing, Dad?
So all that should, I say should, help me finish out this area, make the fire pit area a little bit bigger, connect the front, and put rocks around the entire back perimeter to help with that erosion control and the mud splashing after rain. Now I just gotta go carry it all down here. And we all know the result, right? That wasn't enough either. Being off by a factor of 3 is pretty much par for the course for a DIY project. So I had to actually go back and buy another 50 bags to get all the way around the shed. But now we've got the nice grading established that's really gonna help with that water splash up and erosion. And we're getting close, but there's one major thing I still gotta tackle. Let me show you. Now this has been eating away at me for the past 7 months. Holy mess. That is what 7 months of construction chaos looks like. At the end of every day, I would just be shoving stuff back in the shed, and this is what happens. So let's get this cleaned out and address the inside. I will be the first to admit that staying organized during this build would have saved me lots of time looking for stuff. The irony of the situation isn't lost on me that a little shop greatness would have gone a long way. Now remember, this is, at the end of the day, just a shed. I know it's looking more like a tiny house at this point, but it's still just a utility. For now, I'm gonna build out that back wall with some storage and a workbench, but I'm not counting out the fact that I might do something more ridiculous down the road. This workbench is gonna span the entire 12-foot wall and is a major reason for the entry door not being located closer to the corner. There's a lot of comments early about why I located the door where it is. I knew that I would eventually need to clear this built-in section. To add some support to the front edge, I'm adding a couple legs with these adjustable cabinet feet, which should simultaneously help prevent the wood from moisture from the foundation and make up for any unevenness. And these are spaced such that they fit around a very critical piece of shed equipment. Finally, adding a storage shelf and supports above the workbench. All right, you guys ready to see it? I was gonna do the cost breakdown first and then show it to you, but I think you guys have been patient enough. So I'll go ahead and show it. We'll meet back here to do the cost breakdown. But until then, enjoy the reveal. Pretty freaking cool, right? I mean, I know I'm biased because I built it, but it's pretty nice. As I said before, this was 7 months in the making, 2 of which were in the middle of winter, so it doesn't really count. But still, 5 months of going from dirt patch with weeds to this. A spot where me and the family can enjoy the fire pit, some music, and maybe even some college football on the TV. And of course, the music is through these 2 outdoor speakers I put underneath the eave here on the front porch. And these are actually tied into a small amplifier and Bluetooth receiver. So normally it's plugged into the TV, so all of the TV audio comes through the speakers, or I can switch to Bluetooth and we can listen to music. And hopefully now this little random roof eave makes a lot more sense because it's covering our firewood. You can see I built a simple platform underneath using the same rocks actually as on the fire pit, so everything matches. And I slapped together this really simple firewood rack using some cedar 2x4s and these metal brackets that you can pick up at just about any big box store. They actually work really well, and you can make it whatever size you want. So now we always have dry firewood within easy reach of the fire pit. And of course the rocks that wrap all the way around the shed keep the runoff from the roof from hitting the dirt and then splashing mud onto the side of the shed. So now they just hit the rocks and keep everything nice and clean. Now I don't know if you remember from before, but the inside was not so great. So let me show you what I did. So with everything cleaned up and put away, there is a ton of room in here. You can see this back wall is the only thing I've really built so far. Got a big long workbench on the bottom, as well as a nice shelf on top. Now I can continue adding shelves over there, as well as over the overhead door, but I'm just gonna do that over time, kind of as I need it. Now kind of front and center on this wall, you'll notice we have an outdoor industrial refrigerator because what shed is complete without one? So we can keep this thing stocked for football season or just hanging out. Now this one is from New Air. It's super high quality. I'm gonna have everything you see linked in the video description below if you wanna go check it out. And again, this is an exterior rated refrigerator, so it's gonna be just fine in this environment. Now for this workbench area, I was able to actually recycle a bunch of stuff that I just had left over from other projects. The deck boards you see on top of here were actually the deck boards I removed from our covered patio. I did a video on that a while ago. So these are still in great shape and they're gonna be just fine for this use. And then these crown wall panels are left over from when I did my garage, and I thought this was a great place for them, and I had basically just enough to do the center section. I may actually add more of these around the shed just because of how versatile they are. And again, I'll have that linked if you're interested. You've probably also noticed that I've added lights and outlets to this entire place. So I've got Barina fixtures on the ceiling, as well as smaller Barina fixtures underneath the workbench. And those are on separate switches so I could turn them on independently. And I didn't go too crazy with the outlets. There's a total of 5 spaced around the walls because there's not really gonna be much plugged in out here other than the TV and the fridge. Now I don't have electricity run out here yet. I do plan to do that in the future. But in the meantime, what I've done is basically brought all of the different circuits to a junction box and then tied those into power cords, which I can plug into this power source down here. Now this is the Zender Super Base Pro, which I've shown in another video, and it lasts a long time and can certainly support a couple LED lights, a small refrigerator, and a TV. And of course, there's tons of wall storage options in something like a shed. So I've got this cobalt rack system along here. I've got a couple racks up here that are holding some construction lumber left over from the project. And then on the other side, I've got my extension ladder up out of the way. Now, one of the reasons I left the ceiling so high is because I want the option in the future to use that space for storage if I need it. So I could build a loft, or I can just hang big things like ladders overhead. And for those of you concerned with the foundation, I don't see any signs of cracking or anything. At this point, the shed's been through several freezes, a bunch of rain, so I would think I'm in the clear, but I don't know. And then of course we've got the hidden TV behind this window in the shed, which is gonna be great for college football season, or for the kids to come out here and watch the shed build series so they could see what the hell Dad's been up to for the past 7 months. And then finally, of course, we've got the fire pit area, which is just awesome. Now for now, I've got these plastic gray Adirondack chairs, and they work okay for now, and they match the shed really well. But I think I need to do something a little bit better in the future that may involve me building something. I don't know. And having all the river rock in place is so nice for keeping everything nice and clean so that we can come out here and enjoy the fire as a family. All right, pretty sweet, right? But how much did it cost? So the last project cost update was actually 2 videos ago. So first let's add in what was in the last video, which was part 8. That total was $655 and consisted mainly of trim, cedar, some siding, and some odds and ends to finish up the roof. That brings our running project total up to $14,670. And now for the finishing portion of the project. I ended up spending $1,114 on hardscape and rocks. This of course was mostly the bagged river rock, including 2 delivery fees, because of my lack of planning. Next up was painting supplies. That total was $600, which includes caulking, masking, tape, and 6 gallons of high quality exterior paint. I've still got quite a bit left over, by the way. Then came entertainment at $379. This was outdoor speakers, that little Bluetooth amplifier, and miscellaneous wiring for the speakers. Then the interior supplies, like lumber and electrical, totaled $339. And finally, another $148 for miscellaneous. That brings the finishing portion of the build total to $2,580, and the project grand total to $17,250. And yes, that's a lot of money. But here's some context. I built a cookie cutter tough shed from Home Depot online with similar features, and that total came out to $14,273. That's without the foundation. I've also got a neighbor down the street that just put in an Amish built, so very high quality, 10 by 16 shed, so a little smaller than this one, on a gravel base foundation for $14,000. So yeah, this thing is definitely over the top and a little extra, but it's honestly still within the ballpark of cost for similar size sheds with the same features. All right, let's talk about plans. I've had a lot of people ask me about this, and as of right now, I have not put them together. However, I'll leave a link up here so you can jump on a notification list if you're interested. And if enough people jump on the list, I'll put the plans together and make them available for sale. And finally, I want to say thank you for following along. It's been a hell of a ride. I know some of you have thoroughly enjoyed watching the struggle bus across the finish line. This was a fun project I've had bouncing around in my head for a long time, and it's really cool seeing it come to fruition. I learned so much during this build that I honestly could have never learned had I not built it myself. There's a level of pride and accomplishment that comes with building a big project, especially one outside of your comfort zone, like a tiny house, or a shed. So if you're hesitant to tackle that project on your list, just do it. Be confident in your ability not to know exactly how to do something, but in your ability to figure it out. So go build something great. See ya.